Okay, thank you for the invitation. I'd like to focus on two areas on designing for the built environment. Apart from the accessibility aspect, I believe we need to look at the safety. I think that's all to do with accessibility. It's all to do with using a place with dignity and with independence. The second area I just want to quickly speak on within this next 5 minutes is on capacity building of architects, planners, and engineers and agencies that are responsible for building a acceptable built environment. Next slide, please. Safety for all. I think most of you would have heard the news from Hong Kong back in November last year, where we had this huge fire in this particular housing estate, where 7 out of the 8 towers caught on fire. And the fatality of that particular incident was over 160 people. And there are reports being done at the moment of what happened, but we found that even though we have so-called codes and regulations, people still died. Not only probably from the fire physically, but from inhalation of smoke. People were found in the apartments not being able to escape, and even once get into the escape stairs, somehow were not able to get down to the final area of place of final safety. So we need to look at that in terms of egress. We talked about access for many, many years now, how to get accessibility to a building on a dignified basis, an independent basis. We need to look at egress as a very important point. I think the regulation in Hong Kong will be changed dramatically from this incident, and I'm sure it will happen within the next 6 to 12 months. Evacuation is important, and the fire in buildings, which we haven't really addressed so much. And I've briefly mentioned about natural disasters and the fact that we need to be disability inclusive in terms of disaster risk reduction. Next slide, please. We have our regulation from way back from 2011, our code of practice on fire safety under our building regulation. And of course, it shows us specifically what needs to be done. There's a section, a provision for means of escape for persons with disability. Yet, even though it's going back to 2011 and 2014, it's almost 11 years ago, yet we still have issues. What is the issue? I think that's we need to address, and I'm sure a lot of things will come out why people, older persons, and even persons with disabilities were part of the victims of this particular fire. Next one, please. And that's as part of our regulation. It's fairly basic. In fact, that in what we call our protected lobby, we have the lifts, minimum of lifts, and then a fire escape stairs. And then within what we call a protected lobby, the idea is to have this area of rescue assistance or refuge area, where technically person in a wheelchair or elder person, whoever has a mobility issue can safely stay there and remain there, and technically to be rescued by a fireman. So it'd be interesting whether actually this design worked for the Taipo fire. You can see the other aspects of this area of rescue assistance beside the lifts or in a protected staircase aspect as illustrated in those drawings. Next one, please. And this is what it technically looks like. It's nothing new. UK has been adopting the system. We have a refuge point. It's a big enough space where someone can wait in a wheelchair with friends, with people. And then there's an intercom system where you press the button and you can speak to the central control system, most likely the management system, in order to tell them which floor you are and where you are waiting. And the idea is that you wait there in safety until the fireman comes and rescue you. Did that work? In fact, in the recent fire, we still need to find that out whether that worked or not. Thank you. The next slide, please. And another way of getting people out, apart from the lifts, which we're not supposed to use during emergencies, there are these evacuation chairs, evac chairs that can take you down. Descend only they go down the stairs where person has to be train in order to use this particular evac chair. And the other thing is a person has to be able to transfer from the wheelchair or whatever devices onto this chair, and a competent person can guide them, lead them down the escape staircases. Once again, it has not been implemented in Hong Kong, and whether we'll implement such a system in Hong Kong is yet to be seen. I'm sure we'll be making recommendations in order to get people out of buildings. And of course, that goes along with the design of the staircases, how wide, etc. it should be. And it needs to be designed properly, the staircases, and this evacuation chair needs to be used and practiced by the occupants. Next one, please. And this is fairly new. I think we all recognize the wheelchair symbol, the blue and white wheelchair accessible, that stands for accessibility. Yet we also need to look at symbols in terms of fire safety. Like these pictograms are shown here, assembly points. There are assembly points which is meant to be the area of final safety, assembly points where everybody should assemble and wait in safety, usually on the ground level or somewhere safe on the refuge floors. In fact, also we need to tell people who are using wheelchairs or people who need mobility issues must be able to assemble in a safe place also. And of course, the right signages that leads you to these escape routes. And I think these needs to be implemented and added to our new design manual and code of practices. Next one, please. Finally, the other topic I'd like to quickly mention is the capacity building of the building providers or the building designers, like the architects, the planners and engineers, etc. I believe we need to capacity build at various levels, at the very early level, from primary school right up to tertiary level. I think primary school students can be made aware of issues like disability awareness and sensitivity training, in order someone at a very young age is aware of how to interact with someone with a disability and be sensitive about it. So I think training needs to be done at the various level, primary school, secondary school, and even the tertiary school level. And then we come to formal education at the university level. Our curriculum, even in Hong Kong, our curriculum are not catered for designing for access, egress, and evacuation, etc. We need to look at designing for equality, designing for inclusion, designing with universal design at the urban area, urban planning stage, town planning stage, landscaping, which means the open areas and parks, etc. Built environment, which we always know which type of building. There are many building types that we need to look at, whether it's a home, residence, office blocks, or recreation areas, the built environment. And finally, transportation. We must have accessible transportation, not only in the vehicles and the means of transport, but also transportation hubs, airports, train stations, railway stations, bus stations, ferry stations, etc. Those must be equally accessible. Are we following those? Are we working with our transport planners in order to make sure those are accessible and equally beneficial for everybody? And then finally, when one graduates, we currently, many professional groups have what we call continuum professional development, CPD. A lot of us must have a minimum of something like 20 hours or 30 hours of CPD annually in order for us to register every year. So this is for practicing professionals. Therefore, education level, we must be involved in various stages, education, young stage, during universities, and as a professional, we must look at how to update professional people with the latest technology, the latest development in universal design and accessibility and safety. One more, next slide, please. These are already some of the teaching guidelines already provided years ago, from the European Commission. They've already have teaching guidelines on universal designs from schools to practice. Next one, please. And finally, the industry, something like the construction industry council have guidelines and briefing notes on how to train professionals, how to bring this knowledge to the professionals, into the environmental education. Okay, next one, please. And finally, I believe I just want to focus very quickly on disasters. We have many, many disasters, whether it's flooding, typhoons, bushfires, earthquakes, etc. I think the most vulnerable people are people with disabilities, the older person, and these are the ones being neglected. I know we had the Sendai framework. Are we really following that one? And what extent maybe Satoshi could update us on that one? But we need to be inclusive of all those people in order to get them evacuated to a place of final safety. I believe that's my final slide. So yes, so thank you very much for a very brief introduction of what I'd like to say in terms of education, in terms of egress for everybody. Thank you very much for your time.